I'd like to call the August 21st, 2018 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order and ask you to stand and join us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start tonight's meeting with an introduction of our board members, starting to my left.
Don Kurtz.
Hodge Patel.
Kim Keller.
Todd Chernick.
Ken Sisson.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt tonight's meeting agenda as published.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passed unanimous. Next item on our agenda is approval of our July meeting minutes.
So I'll make a motion to approve the July meeting minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve last month's meeting minutes as published. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I will abstain. I was not here in July. Motion passed. Before we start with consideration of primary variances, I'll just note for the record, the Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial board comprised of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determination. With regard to decisions on primary variances, which we'll be hearing tonight, the board's basis for decision is provided by these four considerations. A, relief if granted would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance, and B, there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And C, relief if granted would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And D, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and that substantial justice is done. Start tonight with case V18-005, 3505 Bethany Bend.
Mr. Chair, staff would like to request another deferral on this case. I spoke with the applicant today, and the city architect and I have been working with him to come up with the final version of the ground sign that he's proposing to do. And we've received a new version of it, and he has a bit of sticker shock. So we are exploring some options with him, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks we'll be able to work something out.
Okay, so this is still actively being worked with staff.
We'd like to, defer it again.
I'll make a motion to defer V18-005 to our next scheduled meeting.
Second.
The motion is second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passed, unanimous. The next item on our agenda is V18-007, 790 Landrum Road.
Mr. Chair, again, staff would like to request a deferral for this month. The applicant is working on some other projects on the property right now, but instead of withdrawing and having to reapply and pay a new fee and all that, I told her we could wait for a month or two to make sure she knows what she wants to do. So.
Okay. Just for everyone's benefit, the filing period on a request for variance, is there a time frame to that? Do they have a year or 2 years or an infinite amount of time?
No, there's no limit on how long it can be deferred. But once it's approved, she only has 6 months to build. So.
Okay.
I've got a question for you. You said 6 months to build. Is that 6 months to start construction or 6 months to complete?
6 months to start.
To start.
Okay.
Right, that's a month there.
Just to be clear, it's actually apply for the permit, not even start construction.
Start the process, filing process, et cetera. Do you have any other questions?
No, that was it.
You care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion on V 18007 790 Landham Drive to defer.
Second?
Can we just clarify, defer to
Defer to the next meeting.
I second it.
a motion and a second? Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion passed unanimous. V18-009, 175 Gladwin Ridge.
Yes, we have this case tonight. Let's see. As Chair mentioned, this is V18-009. The site is a 1.36 acre lot located in the Gladwin Ridge subdivision. It is zoned AG1 and is located in the rural Milton overlay. The subdivision was platted in 1987 prior to the requirement for the 75-foot stream buffers. And actually, when this property was platted, no stream was shown at all on this property. It was only when the adjacent lot was developed that the stream was discovered. The owner proposes to build a 4,000 square foot single-family home on the property, which is now 90% covered by stream buffers. It would be practically unbuildable without a variance. Section 20.4262 states that an additional 25-foot impervious surface is required in addition to the 50-foot buffer adjacent to the stream. All impervious cover should be prohibited in this setback. Since Mr. Gibson proposes a house that will encroach into the stream buffers, the 75-foot impervious surface specifically, a two-part variance is required. On August 6, 2018, the DRB offered the following comments. The septic will be the hard part once the house is built. Make sure that there's room for the septic. One of the HOA members was there and mentioned that a minimum 4,000 square foot house was required, and talked to the staff regarding building placement and any retaining walls. Staff held a focus meeting on August 7th, 2018. There were no comments. This chair read the standards for considerations earlier, and the applicants respond. We will refer to the letter as follows. He states that making the property buildable would be possible with a 10-foot setback instead of a 25-foot on the left side, one that's next to lot 14. In addition, we would also request to reduce the setback to 50 feet off of the blue stream instead of 75. Staff's response is as follows. The intent of the ordinance is to protect the health of our streams. The applicant has modified the site plan to limit the amount of disturbance in the 75-foot impervious setback and remove all encroachments in the 50-foot buffer. The subdivision was platted before the requirement for the 75-foot stream buffer went into effect. In fact, the stream was not shown on this lot at all. In this case, circumstances on the ground changed, not due to any fault of the owner, which now must be addressed. We feel that this proposal minimizes the impact on the rest of the neighborhood. For example, one proposal called for an encroachment into the 60-foot front setback, while another proposed encroaching into the 25-foot side setback. This proposal limits disturbance to the 75-foot impervious setback for the house and the septic systems. Any water runoff to the impervious setback can be mitigated by proper drainage systems and vegetation. Through limiting the encroachment and proper mitigation, the public safety, health, and welfare will be secured. Should the board choose to approve this application, staff recommends the following conditions. A planning plan is to be approved by the city arborist. Provide a mitigation plan for runoff caused by the house in the 75-foot impervious setback. Approval per the site plan dated 6/28/18 by E303 Engineering. and the city architect shall review and improve the plans for the house. Staff recommends approval with conditions of this request, and this ends the staff presentation.
Okay, before we ask the applicant to come forward, are there any questions for staff? I have a couple. Bob, it sounds like from the application that the applicant's been working with you or staff in terms of alternatives and move different placements. Is that correct?
Right. So when this lot was originally platted, there were no stream buffers indicated on the plat. Then there was another development done joining this development, and they have to show all stream buffers within 200 feet. So then they showed the stream buffer going on to this particular parcel. So then once we were aware of it, when they came in looking for a building permit, we said the stream buffer is there. And then when you apply the 50 and the 75 and all the setbacks, it was very different. It was almost impossible to get a building on it. So what we did was we worked with the applicant and came up with several schemes to see which one we can work with. And this one only impedes in the 75-foot stream buffer area. All the setbacks work. So it's just, I think, and then we had to get it up to 4,000 square feet. So we had the footprint, and it kind of works. So I think it was a good solution. It was certainly the minimal amount that he would request for a variance.
One question for guidance, information from staff is I noticed on the plat or on the drawing that there's intended encroachment for the reserve septic system into the 50-foot undisturbed buffer. Is that allowable?
Not without a variance.
And this would be for the reserve septic.
Yeah, actually, I thought we had gotten that out of there. I'm pretty sure. I mean, the applicant can tell you specifically, but if it's that small area, I'm pretty sure they can work around that. Because the variance is just for the 75-foot.
Okay.
On the, oh, that little piece there, yeah, okay.
While you're looking for little pieces, I have another little piece.
Okay.
Just for clarification, along the front setback, it looks like there's room to shift the home and the garage towards the side setback adjacent to lot 14 before the garage would actually encroach into the front yard setback.
So nothing's encroaching into the front setback.
Right, but I'm saying it looks like there's room to move the house further towards the side yard and less encroachment into the 75. What I'm getting at is, as it's shown currently, this home is built directly adjacent to the 50-foot. I'm seeing if there's any room to move
To shift it over.
some. In your
Yeah.
judgment,
No, I think we would. That would be a good point. You make a condition that he would have to hug the 25-foot setback line
Well,
as a hard line.
He's showing this reserve septic. That's
Yeah,
why
but
he
he's
can't
still-
put it.
Well,
it looks like they can extend the septic further back along the side yard because the buffer bends or turns.
back here.
I would think we would want to limit any more encroachment into that impervious. I don't think we want any more septic that close to the stream than we have to. I would think.
So those are some of the trade-off considerations.
Right.
Okay.
But I still think it would be good in the, if the board chooses to approve it, with a condition that when he comes in for his actual building permit, that he works with us to ensure that he is as close as possible to that 25 as he can possibly be and make it work.
On
Okay,
that
we'll
issue,
see
let me caution, just throw this out there into the discussion. One of the recommended conditions was compliance or abidance with the site plan that was presented.
Right.
That would conflict with that provision, so you may have to not include a site plan specific condition if you're going to ask them to potentially change it.
Okay, thank you for clarifying, Council. Any other questions for staff?
I have a question. I don't know if it's for staff or it'll be for the applicant. Was there any variance tried to reach with the homeowners association to reduce the square footage of the house?
We wouldn't have asked. We don't enforce homeowners association rules, so that's not something he would have had a variance. That would have been eligible for a variance.
So we can ask the applicant that.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Kurt?
I'm just curious, the house is sort of sitting right over that impervious setback. How do you think the applicant will have to mitigate that? How do you do that? Is it with gutters that catch all the rain and push it sideways or something? I mean,
Yeah, in the past, the engineer runs the calculations based on the impervious surface, and they can do like French drains or flow wells, and they pipe it somewhere.
Yeah, it's
Into
basically
like
like a dry well or
storm
flow well.
storm.
So it's a tank that goes underneath the ground that stores the water temporarily, and then
okay, so that would be on the side even
Filters it
closer to the stream?
that would be nothing.
Be dig-
You wouldn't be allowed to go into the 50 foot at all.
Right, so.
So you'd have to show it piped
Yeah,
somewhere else.
Piped,
Yeah.
okay.
Any other questions before we have the applicant come forward? Okay, I'm assuming it's Mr. Gibson. If you'd please just introduce yourself and your address. Thank you.
My name's William Andrew Gibson, 125 Cooks Crossing, Woodstock, Georgia, 30188.
Is there any clarifications that you'd care to provide? You've heard some of the line of questioning. The floor is yours, so use the time as you will.
Last week, or 2 weeks ago when I was here before the other committee, we had talked, and I told a little bit, maybe some of you people don't understand exactly how involved I'm in this. I explained it before. This was actually my uncle's piece of property. He bought it in 1988. And as Angela clarified, he bought it in 88, and then when he bought it, it was deemed buildable. And so when he went, at the time his wife was in a terrible car accident, so he waited about 4 years. When he went back, I think it was in 92, they wouldn't give him the permit. So he's had it for all this time, paid the taxes, and long story short, I asked him, I said, well, do you mind if I try? He's not really the type to really dig into something such as this. So I told him I would, do my best. He said I could have the lot because he was going to let it go back to the county. So long story short, I've worked pretty diligently over the last year with the people
With
here.
staff.
Mm-hmm. And it's worked out really well. I've had it's been tough, but they've been very helpful. So we're at the point now to where I came in 2 weeks ago. One of the neighbors was here, and he said, well, we've changed the covenants. I was under the understanding it was a 3,500 square foot. So that was a little bit of a setback. But I went to my surveyor, and she drew out the plat here. I guess is that what you would call it. Mm-hmm. So we made it big enough. She, did all she could to do to get the proper square footage. So we did the best. Now, I could go back and talk to the neighborhood. I don't think they're the type that would really want to change anything.
So you're saying they recently notified you that they increased the square footage requirement from 3,500 to 4,000?
And they changed your covenants? I mean, that usually takes at least a 2/3 vote to change covenants of a...
Evidently, they got it. My father-in-law has built 3 homes in that neighborhood, and the lot right next to it, he built that house. I've lived in 3 of the houses there. I somewhat remember, once he said something, I somewhat remembered something like that happened. I think it was years ago. I think it was at least 20 years ago when they did that. Okay. Most of the subdivision was built out. A lot of the homes in there, though, I looked last night, a lot of the homes are around 3,800 square feet. Some are over 4, of course. But I just don't.
We're going with the current guidelines of 4,000. Yeah. You don't think there's going to be negotiation?
I don't think they will be very helpful in that regard.
Does that address your questions, concern?
I find that curious, that they'd rather a lot sit there empty versus scale back a square footage of a home that would bring up property values. No one likes an empty lot in a neighborhood.
There's from some
anyway.
public that's associated with the HOA.
Yeah,
I was on my own homeowners board, so that's the only reason why.
I would think so too. And I'm not, but they can sometimes be a little difficult.
Well,
it goes both ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please. This is very informative.
So we're at the point now we're hoping to build a house. So whatever it takes, as she was bringing out, maybe some French drains, maybe even a tank or something, whatever it would take to build the home. It's something I'm very partial to do. It's almost like coming home. in a sense, I've lived, like I said, I've lived in 3 of the homes over the last 30 years in that subdivision. So it's something that I've worked pretty hard at and kind of gambled quite a bit with.
So can you speak to the 2 concerns that I raised to staff, and it relates to, as I understand now, you've been working with staff for up to a year on alternatives. It looks from this drawing that there's remains an opportunity to shift the house somewhat to the side property line adjacent to lot 14. Can you speak to that?
I talked to my surveyor and asked her. When I look at it, I kind of agree with you there. It looks like there's a little room. And if we can do it, I can give her a call first thing in the morning. She's pretty helpful. Usually within a day, she has it redrawn. A little bit of expense every time, but of course, but that's okay. Yeah, anything I can do to bring it over, I will.
Okay. We'll address that as we get further through this. Are there other points that you wanted to make?
Let me clarify that. So if I'm looking in the cul-de-sac, I'm looking at the house from the front view, you're saying over to the left, to lot 14?
Yes.
Okay.
To give you a little bit more of a buffer to the actual 50-foot undisturbed, as it's shown right now, you're pretty much right against the 50-foot undisturbed.
Okay.
It appears that it could shift in parallel into the same plane towards the side setback.
Okay.
Maybe 10
feet
or so feet.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. Yeah, if she can do that and maybe just bring the line out from, I'm looking at the green line, the way the septic line, the backup there.
Yes.
Goes.
And that was the second concern that was addressed, which is, as it's shown right now, part of the reserve field does go into the 50-foot undisturbed, which, as you heard from staff, that would require a separate variance and something we should try to avoid.
Sure, I agree. So you're talking about the one in the front, correct?
No, those are, I think, fine. That's the primary, the reserve field. So you're looking
on the side.
Yeah, it's on the directly behind the house,
in the very back.
In the back corner there.
Yeah,
there's
I see
just
that.
a little nodule there.
Okay. Yeah, I think when she drew that, I think what she's trying to say is it's going to touch it but not go over, or not even touch it.
As it's drawn, it looks like it goes into.
It does.
The 50. Now,
I'm sure that could be moved. I would think so.
This raises another question that I'm not certain you'll be able to respond to, or Bob, maybe you can help. Has there been any soil studies done here to know if the soil is conducive to septic? I heard that was
Yes, I have a report. I have a perk and a level 3.
And I don't know, Bob, do you look at those as part of this process?
Not this initial variance, but we will once he goes for a building permit.
Because, we could draw lines on paper and say where, septics or whatever should be in relation to setbacks or buffers, but the soil needs to support it too.
Right. And it's officially a county approval. So that
Right.
all of those, the application would have to go to the county, and the county would actually officially approve that. But we do look at it internally.
I just wanted you to hear that as well.
Sure.
Okay. Other questions for staff?
I've got a question on the plan itself.
Or, sorry, for the applicant?
It is referring to the size of the home being 3,000 square feet. But you're saying it's 4,000.
Well, 2 weeks ago when we came in, they notified us that it was going to have to be bigger. And so the house that I picked was the house that we liked. But when talking to my architect, he said, you better make sure you go to the board and make sure to you guys and make sure you get everything before you go to the expense of drawing the plans. He said, you better get a footprint. And then what we'd have to do is, because we understood it all hinges on the variance. So without it, you could maybe put a doghouse there, But once we get to 25 feet, it's so much bigger and it works. So he said there's no reason to draw plans. We're going with that house. We can modify the one that everyone has, but until we get the proper dimensions of what we can do, and especially after 2 weeks ago when they said you have to bump it to 4,000 square feet, it's a good thing we didn't draw the plans. I would have had to have done it again. So that's what he said, and then I guess last week that's what they said, to go ahead and just get the footprint until you can, we clarify. We don't want to go to the expense of any more than it already has been. That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And I guess what you're trying to clarify is what we're seeing here is going to be 4,000 square feet.
Correct. If you
The yellow.
I'm sorry.
The colored in yellow is going to be
Yes,
4,000
correct. Now,
square
if you
feet.
look, if you look at the garage too, that will be upstairs. The garage is roughly going to be as she was saying, it could be anywhere between 20 to 20 by 25. It would be around 525 square feet
Of living space.
of living space upstairs. So that would kind of put us around 4,100 is what the architect is saying.
Okay.
Hodge, could you clarify your statement? I'm not sure I was following the 3,000,
He meant 3,500. It says here.
not less than, okay, but and whereas you now know it's not less than 4,000.
It's hard to read.
I understand.
A one-story is,
Okay. Any additional questions?
And I have a slightly clearer, site plan. It's not bigger, if anybody else wanted to see it, just for kicks.
I'm able to look at it electronically. I'm okay. Any others?
I'm just curious about this stream that just appeared. I'm just out of curiosity. What is it? Just a little trickle or what?
it's.
No, it's not at all.
Well,
Sandy Creek.
hang on.
Sorry.
What? I'm sorry. I'm asking the applicant. What?
Yeah,
I just don't understand how this just appeared. Is it
Well,
just run off suddenly that didn't have before?
Yeah, the creek is on, if you look at the other property, well, you can't really see it from the map there. Maybe you can. It's coming from the other subdivision. It comes down. Now, they put the retention pond in the back. Before, there was like a creek there. They built a whole new subdivision in the back, and they put a big retention pond. So I don't know if they have rerouted that or how they did that. But usually the creek is, if it rains, it's bigger. But I haven't really been down there I've walked it. But when you walk down, it's not like a flowing creek that I've seen.
I was just generally curious about that, how that.
Yeah.
We've seen that a couple times now, so
Okay.
things change.
Any additional questions for staff or the applicant? Any other comments you wanted to make? What we'll do now is I'll open it for public comment, and then you'll have a chance to make final comments.
Real quick, as far as the septic setback there, I will get with the architect and or the surveyor, and I'll make sure. I think when she drew that, she meant not to hit that line. Maybe she did it. It was kind of in a rush when I had her do it. But I don't think that will be a problem at all. You're looking at maybe a foot or so. So I think we could, last thing I want to do is have to get another variance.
Okay, understood.
And I'll see what I can do about getting the house over. Like you were saying, at least maybe, 5 feet would help, wouldn't it? If we
We'll
can
see what the pleasure of the entire committee is when.
Okay.
We understand your flexibility, though. At least
Okay.
I do.
Okay, that's all.
Okay, then I'll open it for public comment. In terms of public comment, the way we manage.
You have your yellow card?
The way we manage public comments, first of all, we'll ask that you fill out a yellow card and announce your name and address. I'll first open the floor for up to 10 minutes in total for opposition, and then up to 10 minutes for anyone here that's interested in speaking in favor of this application. So understanding that, the floor is open for public comment for anyone here to speak in opposition or against this variance request. You can just leave that up there. Actually, hand that to staff, and then you can speak. The microphone is recording this session.
Olive and Roby Robinson, 400 Doris Road. My apologies. We would like to welcome him to the neighborhood. However, Cooper Sandy Creek is very important to us. It runs 0.8 of a mile through our property. And that is the body of water that you're questioning. It is not just a trickle. It is subject to flooding. And he is building uphill from that, regardless of whether he has a 4,000 square foot home or moves his property to the side of the property line. He's going to impact a downhill septic field into the stream, is my understanding. So we are speaking against it.
Okay, thank you. We still have time left, and there's still some public here. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition or against this variance application? Okay, with that, the floor is open for anyone here to speak in favor. Same guidelines. Announce your name and address. Fill out a public comment card, and you have up to 10 minutes. Hearing and seeing no further interest in public comment, where we'll move to next is the applicant to please come forward if you care for any closing comments, and we'll also address any closing questions for the applicant or staff.
Really, no other comments. Just wanted to thank everybody. And again, I don't know what to say about what they had to say, and I know it's not my part. But like I say before, all I can do to make sure that it's safe, and I feel the same as everybody else in the neighborhood. I don't want to do anything that's going to cause a problem with the stream or have any problem with neighbors. That's for sure. So whatever I can do and whatever is possible to make the house buildable, I'll do everything in my power to do it. That's all.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant or for staff before I close public comment? Okay. With that, note that public comment is closed and the floor is open for a motion and a second. After a motion. Actually, if it's up to the board's pleasure, I'd actually like to reopen the opportunity to ask questions of staff, because I do have some clarifying questions before we take a motion. Any opposition to that?
No.
No.
I would appreciate some guidance and some direction from what we've heard regarding this drawing and site location. As currently noted, we've identified some opportunities to limit the encroachment by moving the home. Can staff help, or can council help with some guidance on how we should address that? Should we make a motion in that direction?
I guess there's kind of two approaches. One is to make the decision tonight and address it by allowing staff to review and approve a plat that's consistent with whatever guidelines you want to give them. Alternatively, you could defer the decision subject to obtaining a new drawing and go forward with it the next meeting.
Okay. Are there other questions to staff since we've reopened this opportunity for questions before I go back to seeking a motion?
I have a question.
Sure.
In regards to the concerns these people had regarding the septic field, is this property extremely different from the other properties around it? Do the other properties have a lot more land between their septic fields and the stream, or is it just? I mean, everybody has septic tanks. Everybody's,
There's a lot of them in this city, yes.
Yeah, so, and they're all in that neighborhood, and I assume this is not the only house that is along that stream that has a septic tank, correct?
Yeah, I mean, this subdivision is, 30 years old? The city, I can't speak specifically for this subdivision because I don't know where the houses are and where the septic is, but we see a lot of cases where the existing house or septic or pool or whatever is now in the stream buffer because the buffers changed after they were built. So.
Okay, so, I mean, obviously we want to protect our streams, But I was just, so it seems like this, the city would not vote in favor of this or propose approving this variance if they were extremely concerned about the septic runoff into the stream. Or staff, correct?
We don't typically, we would not permit it this close if it weren't for extreme circumstances.
I would point out that one of the staff's recommendations, should we move down a path of approval, is requiring a mitigation plan or runoff specific to storm runoff from the home itself and any other impervious surfaces to catch that, collect it, to mitigate further runoff into the stream. Mm-hmm. That's separate from, I think, your question and what was brought up by public regarding concern for septic runoff.
Now I'm a little confused. This variance has to do with going into the extra 25, the 75-foot impervious setback, right?
Yeah.
Was there a second part to it I'm missing?
The house and the septic.
Okay, so the septic is only because it's that one little corner? Is that why there's the variance needed for that? Because otherwise,
No, it's
that whole section towards the back. Okay.
Well, the primary
It's more so the primary.
is in the front yard.
yes, but it is encroaching.
It's also in the 75-foot buffer.
75-foot,
Oh, I see.
But it's not going to be in the 50-foot buffer.
right.
Correct.
Nothing is proposed to be in the 50-foot buffer. He's going to remove that little piece of the secondary, but nothing, we worked with them to get everything out of the 50.
Mr. Chair, can I make a recommendation? This is a very small scale, and he has increased the size of the building since we saw it last. And I think it would be better to have him come back with a plan that really reflects what he's going to do. Larger scale, showing the proper setbacks and the proper encroachments, and maybe even to take a harder look at the building to see exactly where the downspouts would be in the roof and kind of get a better feel for this, because this is a very small scale and it's really not, there were a lot of things brought up tonight, this good discussion about exactly where it could be, and I think we need to do some further work with the applicant to really get it to represent exactly what it is, so you know what you're going to approve or disapprove. I hate to postpone anything, but I think he needs to come in and really work with us a little bit further to get this thing up a little bit more and maybe show some plans to see what this thing would really look like and the full impact on the site, just to ensure that we're representing it correctly, because I hate to see it approved and then it's not, the site plan is not reflective of what it is. And the city attorney has stated that we'd have to waive that, and I don't really like to do that. I'd like that plan for the future for people to see it the way it was really meant to be.
Okay.
I do have another question, though. So,
Yes.
the house aside, I mean, now that I understand this better, I don't see any way that this septic is not going to encroach on that 75-foot, anywhere you put it.
Oh, no,
No,
it
it
is going to
is.
encroach.
It's not going to encroach.
You say it
on
is
50
going to encroach no matter where they put it.
Yes, they need a variance. They were asking for a
I
variance.
mean, I can't see any place you could build.
No, the home and the septic will in some way encroach into the
Right.
75.
Even if I wasn't concerned about this home as much, but this, I don't see where if you change everything around, where you would put that septic, right?
But that's the variance. If they could, if they didn't
Okay,
have to.
I guess I wasn't following it.
Yeah.
Now I got it. The light bulb went on.
Yeah,
Light bulb went on. Okay.
They're not
If
going
they
to do
didn't
the
have to-
50, but the 75 they would have to do.
Okay. So the concern of the one person that had opposition to this is around the septic, and I can sort of see it. I don't know if there's no way you can change this.
Well, I would like to work with the applicant to get a stronger plan created now that he's showing it at 4,000, and maybe to really look at and outline the items that we would do,
We discussed it.
for mitigation and all, and actually make that all part of the conditions, so that it's a stronger variance if the board would choose to do it that way.
Okay, any further questions before I close public comment? All right, with that, I will close the public comment. and open the floor for a motion and a second.
I'd like to make a motion on V 18009, 175 Godwin Ridge, to defer this to the next meeting so the applicant has some additional time to update the site plan that's proposed and take into account some of the recommendations that came from today's meeting.
Okay, so I'll second that. So that for clarity, the motion is to defer to the next scheduled meeting, allowing the applicant time to work further with staff and updating the plan and taking into account the discussion points from this evening. Is there any discussion regarding this motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion to defer passed unanimous. Mr. Gibson, I'd ask you continue to work with staff and refine based on what you've heard this evening and their guidance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item on our agenda, and thanks to the public who's joined as well. Do we have any consideration of appeals or secondary variances for this evening?
We have none.
Any old business?
I have none.
Any new business?
I have none.
Mr. Chair, I will raise an issue, I don't know whether old or new business. At some point in time earlier this year, there was discussion of some additional training, I believe. I have had, and various issues have come up between meetings not occurring for various reasons or a number of members being absent. I have, up to the will of the board, I do have the matter presented. I just didn't know whether to keep it on the shelf or proceed.
Thank you for reminding me. I've recently went through open records training, and I'm remiss in the fact that you have been preparing this for this board as well.
And I'm fine either way.
I think it's important. We have some new members, and it's also just good for some who've been around just to get a refresher as well. At least that's my viewpoint. The rest of the board, some of you are newer. Would you feel it is of interest for some training?
Is this different training than what we had before from you, or is it?
And honestly, I'm not familiar with the exact detail of what. If you went through a standard training, this was Georgia, the Athens people come out and.
I personally, as a chair, was invited to an open records training for all the boards and committees.
Okay.
Which is separate from what I think you were preparing for.
I have some material that could easily
Came
be
from your
left
practice.
out with respect to the open records.
That would be one perhaps item, but there were other items in terms of points
definitely,
of order and stream
more
buffers and whatever.
And I would actually accept any comments or questions with respect to what you would like to see in it as well. It largely focused on the conduct of the meeting and the standards to be applied, not so much as to what the city's ordinances provide, other than with respect to the standards to be applied by the board. It mostly focused more on how to conduct a meeting, come up with good conditions, be prepared for what, public, how to react with the comp.
I'll defer to my fellow board members. Is this
it would be helpful.
of interest? Yes? Okay. From a scheduling standpoint, Angela, do you have a line of sight into next month and how busy that might be versus further out?
So we've got these.
We have these three,
deferred,
potentially?
and I think we have 2.
So next month might be
new ones?
rigorous.
So we're looking at least 2 or 3 hearings.
Can we put an item on the agenda to address a scheduling of this next month? We'll perhaps have a better line of sight to October and maybe look to schedule it.
Yeah, and it is not something that I'm concerned about having a lot of heads up on. So I would be prepared, at any meeting. The next meeting would be fine.
And in the interim, if there's any specific topics that you would prefer were covered or addressed, how should we channel those? Should we send those to Cody and then he can route them to the city attorney?
That's
that
perfectly
work?
fine with me. Well,
Okay.
however they get to me is fine.
So I would just recommend routing topics to Cody, and then he can consolidate those.
And subject to
Sounds
any instructions from the city manager or the department, I'm happy to respond to individual item-specific questions that may arise. I don't know if there's any procedures or policies in place but I'm always available.
Okay. Related to this topic, Angela, do you have any insight when the form-based code is expected to be put into practice?
The UDC, Unified Development Code?
Yes.
Because we have a form-based code now.
Sorry, Unified Development. The new and improved.
Do you know?
I don't know what the schedule is on that.
Yeah.
Is it 2019?
It might. We have a draft, right?
We have a draft, we do have a consultant who's helping us prepare it, so I wouldn't know.
20.
It's a while.
Yeah, it's a while.
Okay. Fair enough. Any other open topics for new business?
Just I wanted to check for the training. Is that something we're looking to do like before our regular meeting, like at 6 or after? Or
Want to do it on the
what?
front end of a meeting or a back end of a shorter meeting? What's the pleasure? Front end works for me. I know Angela and staff, come right from work to here. If we were to meet at 6, would that work on the front end of a shorter meeting? Okay.
Fine with me.
What is the date of the next?
Well, we're going to revisit next month, perhaps targeting October or November when we expect a lighter caseload.
So what is the next meeting date? September?
1 moment.
18th, I think.
September 18th.
Okay, I will not be here for that
Okay.
meeting.
Okay. All right. If there's no other new business, would you care?
I make a motion for adjournment.
I second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
Thank you.